take just a few minutes, and if you've ever seen any of my videos where I'm talking, that probably means about 13 and a half minutes, to talk to you about my own personal awakening to the Mandela Effect. And there are really two reasons why I want to share my own personal story with you. First of all, I think a lot of skeptics, or a lot of people who just don't really understand the Mandela Effect, they may be under the impression that this is how it happens. They may think, one day you're going about your life, going about your business, and you see a change. Maybe you see a Ford logo that just didn't look familiar to you. And so you say, wow, that Ford logo sure is different. I must be in a whole new dimension. That's not how it works. It's usually, for a lot of us, a lot longer of an experience. For a lot of us, it's a lot more complicated than just, whoa, I'm on a whole new planet. So I want to maybe clear up some of those misconceptions, but that's really kind of a minor thing. The most important reason I want to share my own personal experience with you is I have a feeling we're going to be seeing a lot more people coming to terms with the Mandela Effect. And maybe if they hear a personal story that they can relate to, they may be more comfortable admitting that things really are different now. And you guys may also be able to relate to some of my experiences. And if you can, or if you can't, would love to hear about that in the comments section. So here is my personal awakening to the Mandela Effect. It started in 2008. And here we are already in 2016. So obviously it's been quite some time. And I've mentioned this before. Woke up one morning, I was taking my shower, washing my face, and I noticed my eyes were sunken in. And that was huge for me. But I made excuses and I just went about my life. And there were other changes after that, things that I would just make excuses for. All the excuses that we've all made. I clearly have forgotten that. Or I guess they just changed it. And really, you don't spend a lot of time looking into all those little changes. You just accept things have changed and you move on. And then in 2010, my dad passed away. And he lived on the whole other side of the country from me. And so put my dog in the car and we drove off. And that very first day of our road trip, I noticed something that I had never seen before in my life. I, for the very first time, at 30-something years old, saw sun rays. Sun rays. Now, I know we've all heard of sun rays, right? But I did not know that sun rays were things that you could actually see. I didn't know sun rays were visible to the naked human eye. But on that day, and every single day of that trip, there were visible lines, very clear lines of light coming out from the sun. And I have seen sun rays almost every day since then. Well, I should say, I've seen sun rays almost every day until this new sun. I've not seen any sun rays since I saw this new sun. But on that trip with those sun rays, I knew something big had changed. Something in my own personal world was very different than it had ever been. But I assumed it had something to do with my dad's passing. I don't really know why or how. I couldn't explain it. So like everything else, I just moved along. And then, in 2015, I saw the whole Bernstein debate. And I know it was S-T-E-I-N. I know it was. So I hopped on Facebook and was like, hey people, what do y'all think about this? And they convinced me that we were all just wrong as children, that we just misread it or had forgotten or were just ignorant or whatever. But certainly we were not living on a whole new planet in a whole new dimension. And so I let that go. Still kind of bugs me. I wish I hadn't let that go then. But that was 2015. 2016, approximately 6 weeks ago, I'm sitting on my couch. I'm sending a message to somebody. And I type in the word dilemma. And it had been telling me that I had been spelling dilemma incorrectly. It had been saying that for a while. And I just sort of ignored it and was like, I'm going to spell it the way I know it's spelled. But on this particular day, I was bored enough and curious enough to actually look a little bit more into it. I know language. I know words change. Language evolves, right? I understand that. But I wanted to know exactly when did we as a society decide that dilemma was going to be spelled with 2 M's instead of my little N that was in there. So I started researching. And I ended up on a page called Dilemma versus Dilemma. And they were talking about how it has always been spelled E-M-M-A. But that there are a lot of people who know it was always spelled with an N. And I'm one of those people. And they did talk about the Mandela Effect. But I was not ready to jump on that bandwagon yet. But I was still curious. And so I was, just digging around. And you know how it happens on the internet. You start over here, and the next thing you know, you're like, whoop, over there somehow. So somehow, I started with dilemma. I ended up on a YouTube video that was talking about how Jackie Kennedy was the one who shot JFK. And in that video, they had what they called the Zapruder film. And I watched it. And I said, well, that's bunk. I don't know what you guys are trying to pull. That's obviously not the Zapruder film, and anybody familiar with the Zapruder film would know immediately. A, the Zapruder film's not in color. B, there were not 6 people in that limousine. C, it's a whole different angle and perspective of the assassination than in the real Zapruder film. But just to confirm, right, because I know my mind is not perfect. We are fallible humans. So just to confirm, I hopped on another webpage and I looked for the real Zapruder film. And it showed me the film where it looks like Jackie just shot her husband. And I was like, well, what the hell? That can't be the real Zapruder film. I just know it's not. And so I kept looking into it. And then I kept looking into other stuff. And then I saw a map. And I said, what? That's not accurate either. And then I started thinking, maybe somebody's just messing around with the internet. Maybe somebody's pulling a fast one. Maybe Google's doing some sort of experiment on people. So forget the internet. I am going to go to the library. And I'm going to go find a book on geography. And, because I'd seen some of the anatomy changes too, I'm going to find an anatomy book. And I'm going to prove everything is just like it was. So I walk into that library. I go over to the anatomy section. I open a book. It was this whole new anatomy. And it was an old book. And I even went into the kids section. And I think what really hit home for me is when I saw these kids' anatomy books that were probably maybe 20, 30 years old. They've been, basically eaten by children. Jelly marks all over them, scuff marks, kids' crayons all in them. And these books were real. And these books had the anatomy that the internet said was our anatomy. And the geography books were the same way. Even the old atlases had this new geography. And I could no longer just say, I guess that's just an internet thing. At that point, I had to admit something huge was happening. But I still wasn't ready to say, hey, I'm on a whole new planet. And I just kept looking and researching and looking and researching. And I didn't even talk to anyone about it for a few days. And then I decided to call somebody who was my best friend. And she lives across the country. And I asked her like 45 questions, right? Sex, blank, blank, city, fill in the blanks. What's the name of the adult diaper brand? I mean, we just went on and on and on. And she gave me about 85% of my answers. And as we were going through it, she would say, what's the adult diaper brand? She would say, depends. And I would say, wrong. And she would start to get a little pissed off at me. She was like, what? I'm not wrong. I'm not wrong on that. After after we went through the whole quiz and I explained to her what I had been finding and researching, her mind was blown. My mind was blown. And we decided to research it together. So on the phone, we'd sit there and we'd like talk about stuff to look up. Hey, look this up. And hey, check this out. Oh my gosh. And we spent quite a few days just researching and talking and hashing it out. And it was at that point that I had to admit, this is real. This is huge. And this is incredible. This is incredible. And that was about 6 weeks ago. So really what you guys have been witnessing in these videos is one person's experience coming to terms with the Mandela Effect. And I'm really curious to see, if I'm still doing videos a year from now, where will I be at that point? And I have no idea. But I do hope you guys are still along for the ride with me, because I'm really enjoying this. I'm enjoying sharing it with y'all. I'm enjoying sharing it with people who are ready to have their minds expanded. And I'm just so glad that I stopped making excuses. And that's how I ended up on a whole different planet.